everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Laurie, and I'm so excited that you're joining us today. We are going to have a fascinating conversation as usual as we learn from people all around the world at all ages and stages of life. Stay tuned as we shift our dementia care from crisis to comfort.
Here we go. What you think about, you will bring about dementia change. We will.
Well, hi, everyone, and welcome back to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I am thrilled that you are joining us today. We're going to be talking about quality of care and what that looks like in memory care. But before I introduce you to our guests, I first want to welcome all those who are new to our show. Alzheimer Speaks is about sound information, not just sound bites. We like to talk to real people in the trenches all around the world at all different levels. So maybe, just maybe, you can be our next guest. I also want to steer you to go visit alzheimerspeaks.com. We've redesigned the site. You can find a ton of free educational resources there. So feel free to read and watch and download any of those. That's what they're there for. We also, of course, do speaking and training as well as helping people with branding. And while you're on the site, make sure you also click on our book tab. I finally got my speech, Betty the Bald Chicken, that I've done as a keynote for years and years into book form. It's all about lessons in how to care. It's a children's book, but I think you'll find it fun and interesting. That's the feedback I'm getting from all ages of life. So one other shout out I want to make is to Dementia Map. If you haven't gone there, check out our global resource directory. We have 150 categories that you can search. There's also a calendar of events, a glossary of terms, and blog with some wonderful, wonderful articles. Again, that's dementiamap.com. Now let's go ahead and introduce you to our guest today. I am thrilled to be joined by Deena Coffee, who is with Artis Senior Living, and Deanna Vigliotta and Laurie Gredlein. Both are with Seni, and we are going to be talking again about quality of care. What does that look like in memory care? Just a little bit more about each of them. Deena Coffee has 23 years in healthcare. She's held a variety of positions from dining room manager to administrator in independent living. And she is now a certified dementia practitioner and the director of community relations for Artis Senior Living of Eaton. Laurie Gredlein has 20 years in healthcare, and she also has held a variety of positions over that time. And she is now an account executive for Seni in the Northeast region of the United States. And then Deanna Vigliotta has 30 years in healthcare, and she really is relationship-based. For whatever she's doing, that comes first. And that is so pronounced with her work at Seni, who she's been with since 2019. And then, of course, they saw what a gem she was, and they moved her into the national sales manager role quickly. Seni is really all about changing how incontinence is looked at and dealt with, all about quality of life and having a life that is dignified. And we're going to learn a little bit more about all of this as we talk with these ladies. Well, ladies, I'm really excited to have you with us today. This is going to be a really good conversation. I think it's one that is overlooked in terms of what is quality care and, all the different angles you can come at that by. But before we kind of dive into that, I always like to ask each of my guests if they've been personally touched by dementia in their own family or circle of friends. And Deena, I'm going to start with you first, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks for having us again, Laurie. We always appreciate the opportunity to share information. I think every time I speak with you, I am touched more and more with parents of friends. I've got a great aunt right now who was just recently diagnosed with early onset. I have brought up in the past, I had an aunt that actually passed away from the disease. So unfortunately, the older I get, the more I'm touched.
Okay, thank you. Laurie, how about you?
Yes, Laurie. Unfortunately, my grandmother had Alzheimer's, and she lived with my father and his wife for 5, 6 years. As she was declining, they became the caregivers for her, and she passed away about a year and a half ago. So yes, absolutely.
Okay. And Deena, how about you?
So my dad had Lewy bodies dementia. He was diagnosed in 2018 with just dementia, and then in 2021, his symptoms really turned into the direction of being Lewy bodies dementia. It worsened over 6 months, and then in September of 21, he passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. It's not uncommon for those diagnoses to change too. And I think that's a good thing for people to understand too, because just because you get labeled with one thing doesn't mean it's going to stick with you the whole entire time. I know my mom, we found out upon autopsy with her that she had Alzheimer's, which is what we were told, but she also had Lewy body and she also had some Parkinson's. And so you just don't know with this disease. It's pretty new. Deena, I want to ask you a little bit more about your role and your experiences with Artis in memory care. What makes it different?
So Artis is super unique. We're an assisted living by model, but our focus and our design and everything about us is all focused on memory care. Our community, the footprint of the community, the philosophy of our company. Artis is an acronym. A is ability to have a voice. R is respecting and maintaining relationships. T is treasuring uniqueness. I is integrity, and S is success and recognition. So that acronym just rolls up our entire philosophy. All the directors, and especially our director of the Artis Way experience, is always making sure that our residents, our associates, and our families are all following that philosophy to make our residents and our families and our associates have the most successful day they can have.
Oh, that's wonderful. How did you connect with Seni?
So it's a really cute story. We were having our grand opening in June of 21, and this young lady walks in the door and she says, "I'd like to see Alex Amata." And Alex was the director of community relations at the time. And we're like, "Sure, who are you? Tell us about yourself." Laurie explained who she was, introduced herself, and we're like, "Oh, how do you know Alex?" She's like, "I saw her on LinkedIn." So it was so adorable. And we were like, "Oh my God, you're great." And then she just became part of our world. Seni is a great product, and Laurie and Deanna are great people. And we just really connected. We really did.
And I can say I know Alex too, and she's absolutely wonderful. And because I've been out to your place actually years ago to speak and stuff, so I know Artis very well. One of the things I wanted to talk about, you mentioned the acronym and all the things that it stands for, but boots on the ground, what does that look like? How is that really implemented, engaging residents in that fashion?
So one of the things that we talk to our families about as they're touring is a partnership profile. The partnership profile is 8 pages. It's their homework. They need to go home. They need to write everything down about their person. One of the ways that I describe it is, listen, if someone's going to tell me that I have to get up at 7, I have to get dressed and be at a table or be at a dining room to eat breakfast at 7:30. That's not what I'm used to. That's stressful. That's not what I want to do. I want to sleep till 8. I want to have a cup of coffee. I want to get dressed and maybe eat. So those are things that it's a person-centered approach. So that's how boots on the ground, that's how we're doing it. Our care partners, our coordinators of health and wellness, they're reading those partnership profiles. They're digesting them 2-3 days prior to the resident moving in. Our new neighbor is somebody that we have to welcome, and we want to make sure that they're feeling as welcome, as stress-free as possible. And our care partners knowing all about them before they get there is part of the way we do that.
Now, do families push back on that? 8 pages is a lot when you're on the other side and placing somebody, or does it really give them comfort? Like, oh my gosh, no one's asked me these questions before.
It's I've seen a little bit of everything. Recently I saw husbands just so overwhelmed with everything that I was kind of like, okay, let's just talk. Let's just talk. You tell me, I'll fill it out. Another family was, oh, this is going to be, daughter Taylor's job. That's how they kind of assign that to, I could always tell that they assign it to the most like efficient person in the family or the historian of the family. So they like to do that. And I think that it does. I do see a little bit of a light in their eyes when I tell them that I want to know everything. They're like, oh, okay. Like, he used to do this, but he doesn't do that anymore. It doesn't matter. It's okay. Tell me about it. So it's interesting. It's different with every person, every family.
Well, and I like that you personalize that too, so it's not, you must write it down and you must get it back. It's like, if you just need to talk, because I think it can be overwhelming. And sometimes, when people are doing a placement, they're so overwhelmed and feeling so much guilt because a lot of them said they'd never placed their loved one, and their mind can be in a whole different space. And then when you're asking for specifics that I think are really evident for what you need might not be evident for what they need, because no one's really asked them some of those questions before of like, well, what time do they get up? And, what do they like to eat? And what are their hobbies? And, all of those types of things are, can be overwhelming, I think, anytime you're feeling in crisis. And I know you guys put a real soft mode, loving mode, welcoming mode in taking families in. But I think it's very common for them just to feel all tensed up, that's been my experience. Maybe yours has been different though. So please correct me if I'm wrong on that.
No, it is. It's, we have a resident who wants to eat standing up. He used to run a restaurant. So any of us that's ever been in the restaurant world know that you don't sit and eat. You stand over a counter, whatever. So if we didn't know that was what he liked, then the care partners would try to encourage him to sit. But no, he's more comfortable. His mind reverted back. So it does give them a lot of peace to know that their person is going to, we're going to know their person, their family member inside out and backwards. And that gives them a little bit of solace, I believe anyway.
Well, and I'm going to throw in just a side story here of where my mom was living in a nursing home, and there was a woman who would disrupt mealtime every day because she would undo all the placements that they had, the napkins and the silverware, and she'd grab them and off all the tables, and they would just get furious with her. And because they didn't understand, and she didn't speak English very well. And I remember being there one day watching this, and I'm like, can I just approach her? And they're like, yeah, go for it, Laura, because they were honestly just frustrated. And that does happen in communities. So I went up to her and I asked her if she would go for a walk with me. And as we were walking, I got a few words out of her. And what I found was her family owned a restaurant. And all she wanted to do was roll the silverware, because that's in her mind how it should have been placed. And so she was really, really trying to help them. But again, if you don't know that stuff, it's so important. And I love that Artis takes the time to find those things out, because I do think it's critically important. Let's talk about staffing, because I know a lot of families have questions with staffing. There were some questions before COVID. Since COVID, there's been a lot more questions of, are you staffed? How are you staffed? And what does that mean, to my loved one?
So we will definitely give the staffing ratios that were set by in each state, town, county. It could be different. We do love to keep one care partner always in the community. In the neighborhood. Our neighborhood in particular in this community has about 14 suites in it. So one care partner will always be here. And then there will be another care partner floating around, maybe in the community center, maybe outside. But we're a little bit differently staffed than your typical assisted living because of the fact that we are a niche. We are just specific to memory care. So, maybe a care partner is going to be sitting playing a a game of chess with somebody. But we're always right here in the community. We know what each resident needs. If we know that, so-and-so is kind of on a schedule, is going to need to, be checked on because maybe he likes to walk outside and that's been his norm. And again, we go back to the partnership profile, knowing what those folks like to do. So our care partners, they're a blended role. They do a little bit of everything. And that's also very comforting to a patient, or I'm sorry, to a resident, because of the fact that they get used to that person. They know that they're going to count on them in the dining room. They know that they're going to count on them to help them dress in their suite in the morning. So I think it's very comforting the way we're doing our staffing, and families seem to be pretty happy with it. So.
Well, and to me, it makes sense because that's how a real family works. People aren't divided up. You just know you can rely on somebody, and there's not as much confusion of new people entering in all the time either, which I think is important. Are there any encouraging stories that you could share about, some of your residents' experiences in terms of quality of life living at Artis?
So we're very, we like to use the word, some people like to use the word behaviors, and I like to use the word expressions. They are expressions. People with dementia sometimes can't express themselves appropriately. I've told this story before. We had a gentleman living here, and he was pretty insistent on going into everyone's suite. And we were kind of discouraging it at first. And we were right there with him. We were joining his journey. We were walking the neighborhoods with him, trying to figure out what he wanted. And we were, really trying to understand what he was trying to express to us. Well, opening every door. Finally, we said, okay, you know what? Let's just let him go. Let's see where he goes. He went into one of the suites. He went right to the bathroom. He turned up the faucet, stuck his head underneath, and drank. He was thirsty. He could not express to us that he was thirsty, and we needed to just follow along and be patient, and let's walk with Joe on his journey and see where it's going to take him. And it took him right to a faucet, and he drank, and he was a happy camper. So those are just things. We just spend the time with the residents. We're not, we're paying attention to what they want. We're looking at their faces. We're reading their expressions. So that is one of the things that Artis is all about. And, just having the folks here, Rachel, our director of life enrichment, she's constantly pivoting. Maybe we're going to sit down and we're going to do a craft. Oh, wait, hold on. No, we don't want to do a craft right now. Okay, we're going to go over here. We're going to do flower arranging. Okay, let's all go over here and do flower arranging. So we're very flexible in that respect. And I think we need to, again, join them in their journey and see what gives them the least stress for the day.
I like that, being fluid. Now, I would imagine that you have issues because I know a lot of people end up moving a loved one into a care community because the needs become too high. And one of those needs often is incontinence, and families just don't know how to deal with that. How do you guys deal with incontinence with a resident?
So working with Laurie and Deanna and the Seni products, they're just, the presentation that we had was just blew us all away as to how it's just really a superior product. And we all know getting a good night's sleep is so important. So if you're getting a good night's sleep and we don't have to wake up a resident to get them up to go to use the facilities or to, change them, which we don't do that anymore, don't have to. But any of the things like to wake somebody up overnight is, again, it's just adds stress to your day. You don't sleep well, you don't feel good. So they're all sleeping better. And, during the day, if someone's wearing a product, we know that any of the Seni products are going to be, exactly what they need, where you're not going into that environment where you're smelling things that we don't want to smell, because that's not happening here. The products are wonderful, and Laurie is great to work with, and our supplier is awesome to work with. They're right here for us whenever we need anything. And that's important, because if you tell a family, hey, we've got this product that we think you should try, that we think is wonderful. And, you're going to go to this supplier and then it's 2-3 days and nothing happens. Well, then they lose interest. And then they're, doing something different. So with our relationship with Laurie and with their supplier, Adoro Medical Supplies, it's great. It's awesome. They're right here for us, and our residents get exactly what they need when they need it.
That's nice. And I think that showing that collaboration, that partnership, to me as a family member, that was huge. When I felt that people really were working as a team together. Because I remember there were times like, well, we're out of such and such, and it's like, well, I didn't know we were out of such and such, and so then I'm kind of scurrying around trying to find something, and that can be really frustrating for everybody, as a whole. Laurie, I want to ask you about your Seni Incontinence Care Program, and how does that tie into the memory care community? I know we've talked with home health care in the past with just rave reviews. What are you seeing with memory care?
Well, I think with the continence care program, the first thing, the most important thing is to improve continence, right? That's our goal. That's our mission. We want to do it through lots of education. And thank you again for having us on your show. This is the way we educate people and let them know that we're here. We work with so many different communities, and when we started working with Artis, we started to get feedback such as the residents are now getting their restorative sleep. They're getting a peaceful 8 hours of sleep. That's really a game changer for so many people, not just this resident who's suffering from dementia, but their family members are now feeling confident that their loved one is getting that restorative sleep. The staff at the Artis communities are extremely happy. They're working through their shifts, and they're not being woken up or having to deal with changes at 2 a.m. They're also not having to deal with, a possible fall. I mean, we're talking about some serious medical risks that they might be going to the hospital, such as a UTI, a skin breakdown, and a fall, like I just said. If they're getting that restorative sleep, they're not waking up, obviously. So hopefully they're not going to have a fall. It's just taken out of the equation altogether. They wake up more alert from getting their restorative sleep. That leads to them getting into those activities that, some people, even past COVID, they're still staying in their suites because they're either embarrassed, they might have an accident doing one of their activities, and the care partners are trying to get them out to socialize them, but they're nervous, they're embarrassed, and we all understand this. And now with the Seni products, they don't have that problem. They can go do the activities. They can feel confident. They have their dignity back. It's we've heard so often that they are life-changing and they're game-changing, and we hear it again from the families, the caretakers, everyone involved. So it's just a wonderful thing. And aside from that, from what Artis does and what they offer, they're just an amazing organization. I know Deena hasn't gotten to it, but they have a person on their staff that actually helps that new resident get acclimated with their friends that are already living there. They bring them together. They, connect these people so they're not kind of left out. It's just such a nice welcoming that Artis has in place, all the staff for these people to move in. And like she was saying about the 8 pages, I mean, these families are more than well informed when they are moving somebody in there, and they just feel so comfortable and confident that their loved one is completely taken care of. And I've been in Deena's building where the families are leaving, and I've heard some funny comments where one time a family member was saying, oh my gosh, Dad is not having a good day today. And I'm sorry for you guys, but I have to get back to my job. So, thank you guys for all that you do, because she knew her dad could be a handful sometimes. So, yeah, it's just been really, really great all the way around.
Well, one of the things I've noticed with Artis, and I've been to many of your communities, is there really is that sense of family with the residents' family, with staff. The conversations that are had, sometimes I go on tours and stuff, and I'll see people stop and kind of pause and say hi to somebody, but you can tell when it's kind of an act or a task, or when it's a real conversation. You can see the glint in the residents' eyes and the family's eyes, and just the camaraderie. I mean, it's something that's palatable there. Deena, I wanted to ask you one other thing, because I would think with people being able to sleep through the night is absolutely fantastic on multiple levels, but I would imagine that it also affects the staff themselves in terms of tasks that they have to carry out, because nobody likes doing the whole changing thing, throwing somebody in the shower when it's a mess, or stripping the beds and things. I would imagine that has really enhanced the job that they do on a huge level.
Yeah, and I actually just want to jump in about family and our families and our residents. I want to just tell you a quick story that before I tell you about your question, my dad lived at our brick community, and he passed away right there. And the nurses, and we don't call them nurses, the coordinators of health and wellness and the care partners were absolutely amazing the night that my dad passed. And when I tell you, it was the best experience it could be in that situation. And they were part of my family for that period of time. For those 3-4 days, they were right there with us. And as you were talking and as Laurie was talking, I was just recalling how wonderful they were. And I've seen it happen here in this community. I've seen the families really embrace with the coordinators of health and wellness and really talk to them, and everybody be on the same page. It takes a village to do what we do. And, it's stressful on the caregiver. It's stressful on the resident. So if we can all be one in the journey, then it's going to help our residents that much more. So now, with that being said, your question, our residents need a little bit more, sometimes one-on-one, than your typical assisted living resident. So with our care partners not having to be in the bathrooms that often or in the showers that often, they're helping the residents to have their successful day by being as normal as possible and having a day like you and I have. And that's gonna make everything just so much better. Anxiety levels and everything, and happiness and just contentment. So that's a lot. It's to do what sometimes with dementia. They're in and out of cognitive. So what if you're having that really cognitive moment and you're in the bathroom with somebody and they're having to change you, and it's debilitating to somebody to have to all of a sudden be like, wait, why are you doing this? So with the Seni products, it gives us that much more time to have the quality time with each of the residents that we need to have.
Wonderful. It really brings that dignity back. Deanna, I want to talk about kind of big picture. And for you, what does good care look like from a Seni perspective?
Well, I would say, big picture, to Laurie's point, we as a company try to provide a lot of education about always, first and foremost, try to improve continence first. Nobody wants to be incontinent. So try and improve that first. So things like Kegel exercises, encouraging people to evaluate certain medications and when they're taken and what may be the side effects related to having to use the bathroom and fluid intakes and when liquids are taken and just an overall evaluation. And I say that too, and it kind of leads to what Deena said, an evaluation, a person-centered evaluation, because every single one of us is different. So if we start with, let's improve continence first by looking at everybody as individuals. And if we can reduce some level of incontinence, that's a good thing. And then for those folks that are left in the demographic where they do need a good product, then good looks like, I would say, overall umbrella trend is exactly what Artis is doing. Years ago, a lot of communities would say, we don't do that in terms of products, right? The residents provide their own, and that always will remain a choice, obviously, for residents. But if I am that executive director, if I'm that owner operator, if I'm that resident wellness director, I personally feel, why wouldn't you tie yourselves in with a good company that offers a good product, number one, to keep your residents healthy and happy and reduce their risk of falls, of UTIs, of skin breakdowns on the clinical side, and then from a social side, increase the confidence level and the dignity level for folks. So I always get excited when a community says, yeah, we are going to look at a continence care program. We are going to implement one. We are going to roll one out, because I always think that ripples out exactly kind of umbrella view of what good looks like. It's not just the residents. It's not just the caregivers. It's not just the families. I think Deena said it. It's one. It's everybody. So what does good look like for people that have to use a product? When you have a relationship that is between manufacturer and distributor and community, and then within that it grows even deeper, the relationship that Deena and her teammates have with Laurie, it resonates. I tell you, I travel a lot, and I go into that community, and it's people helping people. I mean, it's as simple as that, but it's very deep. It's not simple, but it is. It's people helping people. It resonates. So I would say that's what good looks like. Good products, understanding the education behind it, and then having communities that say, yeah, we are gonna look at that. We are gonna make that a priority. We are gonna guide. I hear things in communities where a product people could bring their own in, and that resident could run out, and then you could have an adult child that leaves work. They're coming to visit mom or dad. Correct me if I'm wrong, Deena, but then they could come to a community that doesn't have a continence care program where it's taken care of, right? And then that community, and they're not doing any, nobody's ever doing anything wrong per se, right? I think this industry, for the most part, everybody's trying to help people. They may say, hey, mom's out, can you make a quick trip down to the store? And you think, well, that doesn't look good really for anybody, right? Now you have that person that wanted to have that visit that's cut short. You could have some, people that are buying inferior products could have to be changed more often, right? Someone may be waiting to come visit, or as Deena mentioned, you can have, it's not the sexiest of topics, but you could have urine odor, right? You could have somebody voiding on a nice piece of furniture, and they may feel bad about it. They shouldn't, but they may, and that doesn't feel good. And then the community's left with, okay, what are we doing, guys, now? So good to me looks like, yeah, improve continence first, and when you can't, you need a good product. And educate about the why behind a good product, and then work together with a very person-centered approach, because that's the great thing I think about all of us. Everybody's a little bit different with their needs and their likes and their dislikes and so forth. So you roll it all together and hopefully we have good.
Well, and you guys do an amazing job of educating in a comfortable fashion, and one that is also it's just so positive, because your goal is to improve quality of life. It's not to sell a product, it's to improve quality of life, and that really shows on many levels. And I was so glad when you brought up about skin breakdown, because I'm sure artists, and I won't call them RNs, the coordinators of health and wellness, have to be thrilled with less of that going on, because boy, you don't want someone getting sick or septic. So many things can happen with that. And like Laurie, you had mentioned the slips and the falls. I have heard story after story after story of someone slipping in urine. And, that's not good for anyone. And all of a sudden, they're in the hospital with a broken hip or arm or whatever it might be. And I love the idea of this partnership too, because, as a family on the other side, being called to do one more thing, and usually it's a last minute thing, it gets frustrating, and again, not that it's anybody's fault, but sometimes you just are in this time crunch. And then I've seen staff too, where my mom was at before she was even using these types of products, where they were kind of stealing from Peter to get Paul covered. Is it the right size? Isn't it the right size? And then, now that I'm a new grandma again, we're doing the whole diaper thing, I think about the different types of products and skin irritation and size and fitting and how important all of that stuff is. And I know you guys do a really nice job in terms of how something fits and how it needs to fit. I still was shocked on one of the episodes where you talked about fluffing it up first so it's more absorbent. And I was like, well, of course, that makes so much sense. But I had never in all my years ever heard of that, and those are important details, or your guards that you have so things don't seep out. Those are really important. Dan, I wanted to ask, because you're on such a mission, with your team about trying to reduce the stigma about incontinence. Are you feeling like you're making some headway in there?
Yes. Overall, yes. Definitely overall, yes. It's funny, Laurie. When we think of stigma, right? Most of us, when we think stigma with incontinence, it would be the stigma of, again, voiding, right, without intention. It would be the stigma of possibly, odor, a spot, things like that. I tell you, the more we carry on and move forward, what's really exciting, that if you think about a stigma that's been associated with incontinence products, has really been in the past. I feel like, they're not so important, right? A disposable commodity. And that's probably more than anything, the biggest thing that my teammates and I are seeing across the country, which is awesome. And what I mean by that is, Laurie and I were just at a conference actually with some clinical folks. And we asked, just out of curiosity, what products are you using? And we're finding in the past, we could have folks that would say, I really don't know. It's a good question. I don't know. And you think, okay, then now we've transitioned to a lot more people know what they're using. And that tells me that education is working to, let's bring this out on the table of, this stuff is a critical continuum of care component. It's important stuff. So that stigma is changing, where it is having more of a seat at the table, so to speak, in a positive way for the improvement of the quality of life. And then, I would say with the traditional stigmas, I think COVID, as ugly as it was, as ugly as it continues to be, one of the silver linings is that the bright light was shined on the ugly outcomes of social isolation. And my teammates and I always just want to scream as well, hello, it was there before for people that are incontinent. And if we don't change, it'll be there again. So that has helped us. You got to look for golden nuggets, I think, in life of what it brings you. So yes, I feel confident saying overall more people are more free to discuss things and realize that it's nothing to be ashamed of. There's support out there. I think we always try to surround ourselves, and I won't even say we're lucky. I think most people in senior living, in healthcare in general, in the aging space are kind, caring, compassionate people. So when you just start aligning yourself and having conversation by virtue of that, it springboards in a positive way. So yes, I guess that's my long babbling answer to, I do think it's changing for the better.
Yeah, I know from, the people I talk to around the world, I think it is too. And I think you guys have really been a huge force behind that, because this wasn't a conversation, to my knowledge, that people were having on even like a corporate level. Everyone kind of got their own products from different things, and families would pick them out. And there really wasn't talk about fit and quality and what does it really do. It was like, okay, check that off. It was kind of filling one of those holes. And now people are thinking twice about how they do this, why they do this, and having products, delivered, to the community. I mean, just filling that hole alone, where all of a sudden you're not without. To me, that's massive for everybody on that one. Just gets rid of a big frustration. And again, I think when there's a hole like that, once you're educated, you realize, oh my gosh, slips and falls are up, skin breaks could happen more. I mean, you just start thinking about all the things that are really pertinent of why you need this product. I wanted to ask each of you in terms of, and I'm going to go to Deena first, what types of changes or improvements are you seeing and hearing about in senior living and memory care as a whole that you feel are positive?
I think we're more educated. I think we are learning. I've been doing this for 23 years. And I think we've learned a lot through Alzheimer's Association, through various educational offerings, and just through, life in general as to where dementia can take a person and how we can best care for them. And I'll say it again, join their journey. It has evolved to an artist. That's where it's brought us, which is amazing, because this is focused right on those folks with those diseases, and how we can best be our best for them to be their best. And I think that makes a huge difference. Like I said, in seeing it with my own dad, and years ago, my grandmother, his mother, she had dementia as well. And she was in a nursing home, and they really didn't know what to do with her. And, they just brought trays in, they brought crossword puzzles in, and, she just screamed and yelled because that's not what she needed. So now fast forward to 10 years later, and, I've got my dad living at Artis, and my dad was a jack of all trades kind of guy, and he could build a house. He didn't know how to fill a dishwasher to save his life, but he could fix it for you. So he would literally be able to take the drawer out of the dishwasher. The care partners would allow him to inspect the door all day long. There's nothing wrong. He would just kind of move it around and check it out, turn the furniture upside down because he thought it needed to be fixed. That's allowing him to be him. And we've learned that over 10 years. Let's just all take a beat and let's just see what happens, and let them be themselves. Let them be the best person they can be. Let them sleep overnight. Let's have them do all the things that they can do to just be their best. And I think that's where it's evolved to.
And what a great place that is. Laurie, what are you seeing as far as improvements in memory care and senior living as a whole?
Well, for one, post COVID, I think we all can agree that we're finally seeing the smiles on faces again. Not just from the masks being slowly taken away, but also just that people are interacting now. The families are able to come back to the buildings, the communities, and visit their loved ones. They don't have to wave hi through the glass. That's just so important in my opinion. The changes in everyone's demeanor and their excitement and places like Artis with their care team that's been there since day one, pre-COVID, post-COVID, and how they interact with their residents. And again, just filling the void that we all had to suffer through with COVID, especially our seniors. I think the other thing is the education has really evolved, particularly with us. I mean, we have really gotten the brand awareness out there. We've gotten the Seni name and what it does out there more and more. I mean, we've joined on so many conferences, and last week we dealt with, it was pretty much all clinical people walking through that conference, and everybody that came by our booth was just really giving us kudos for how we were explaining how Seni works and the differences, and how we can really make these nice changes in people's lives. And everybody around us was just applauding us basically. And I think that's important. I think that's important to kind of pat ourselves on the back now and then. Artists should be doing the same thing all the time with how they deal with their residents. So yeah, I think basically things like that. I also wanted to mention one of Artis's sister communities reached out to me probably about a month ago, and they were telling me about one of their residents. Unfortunately, this gentleman had a couple falls within a very short amount of time. He was using some product that unfortunately he was leaking and waking up late at night, trying to rush to the restroom, and the falls were happening very close together. They called me as soon as they realized, okay, we've had two now in 2 days or whatever it was. Can you please bring us some samples so that we can try to prevent this from happening? I, of course, said, absolutely, I'll have them there immediately. Went to bring them some samples, and all good news all around. The family was thrilled. The resident wasn't falling. He was sleeping through the night. So, again, it's the education and that awareness. I think it's really evolved from where it was, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And I think the communities themselves, I mean, before artists, I mean, I used to work in senior living in communities. There were no artists back in the day. They did not look like that. They didn't have the feel. They didn't operate anything like the way Artis does. So I think all of that together has just been all really wonderful things that have evolved.
I think, one of the biggest differences that I see in terms of the branding of the Seni product is you're really doing it through storytelling, real stories, real people. And you guys all come from this base of, it's about service, it's about quality of life, it's about dignity, and our product can do that. Versus, this is the size, this is the price, all of those things fall in line. But I mean, you get that out first, that we are here to partner with you. And to me, that makes a huge, huge difference. And it automatically makes people listen, because that's not normally how we're sold anything, and it's like, to me, when I talk with you guys, the sale is secondary, the education is first, and the storytelling just automatically comes out, because there's so many magical stories I know that I've heard through these conversations that are just like, of course this makes sense, really makes it a no-brainer. Deanna, anything else that you wanted to add about improvements that you're seeing or changes in memory care or senior living as a whole?
I think I think I will say, I mean, something I'll share that sticks with me, and I think I bring it up to Deena every time I visit her community, but it's about education that goes just ripples and ripples. Is I had a tour of their community. I lose track of time, but it could have been a year or so ago. And they took me into one of the suites, and there was a nightstand, and the was screwed into the light stand. And Deena explained that if somebody gets out of bed, the reaction could be to grab hold of that light. And so if that light is not screwed in, that could be a fall risk. And so I tend to pick things up that are just, I find that fascinating. My mind may not have thought like that, but I'm so amazed. And so when I'm out and I'm touring other communities, I would never, I want to sometimes go around and pick up lampposts and go, are these all down? But sharing that is again, someone starting out with a senior living community that learns that tidbit along. Like, I think COVID in the last few years has provided all of us with a lot more empathy and understanding. And I think that's umbrella level within senior living. And I think it's just more collaborative in nature of sharing of information across the board on so many more topics that again, we become one when we're kind of better together, so to speak. So I would just say that there's more empathy, more learning, more education, and it does feel like, anyway. I don't know. I know Laurie and myself and our teammates. We're happy, and I think that's just like it's getting happier. And it was never unhappy, but it's just the happiness has taken it to a new level of people are just seem more happy. I don't know. I like it though. I like the direction.
Well, when you can remove kind of those crisis moments of a slip and fall and a hospitalization, when you can take out that ping of having to do something extra because something wasn't done correctly, or product wasn't as good, those things they make you happy. They're like, yeah, this is good. this is good. This is a good thing.
Yeah.
Anything that we haven't covered that anybody wants to mention?
I did want to say when Laurie was talking about, education and products and things, it just brought me back to their supplier is very available to us. And whenever I text or call them, they do ask all the questions, which is huge. What's the size? What's the need? What's the time of the day? Is it obviously male or female? But they're asking all the questions that need to be asked, which I think is really amazing. And it just kind of shows to their integrity as to making sure that their clients, our residents, are having the right product that they need. So I think it's super important that they are as embedded with the conversation as they are. It's amazing.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, I want to make sure that I get contact information out so people can go to Seni's website, which is Seni, SENI-USA.com, or you can email Deanna at DEANNA dot, and her last name, VIGLIOTTA at tzmousa.com. And that is kind of their mothership company. We know them by Seni here in the US. And then they also have a YouTube channel. You can find them on LinkedIn as TZMO-USA-Inc. and on Facebook as Seni Cares. And then Deanna can be reached at D Coffee at Artis and then MGMT.com, or you can go to their website, artisseniorliving.com, and you can also put in Eatontown and you'll find her specific website. In wrapping up, I just found this, as always, very informative. I always learn something new, and I appreciate both Artis and Seni getting together to share this information. I think I think it's really important for people to hear. I love the way you have just a conversation. It's not something difficult to listen to. And sometimes when you're talking about a topic that can be, kind of not fun to listen to, this was just kind of friends getting together, chatting about how it's going, so I think that makes it much easier to learn as well. And to our community listeners, I would like to ask you to like, click, and share this episode, not because I want the clicks for Alzheimer's Speaks. It's never been about that for me, but it's because people who are dealing with incontinence, and they may not have even told you about it. In your own family, your circle of friends, your coworkers, your neighbors. We need to get more and more of this information out. So it seems normal for them to reach out, because there is a lot of guilt and shame when dealing with this. And that's the last thing anyone dealing with incontinence should have to be worried about. So be a giver of hope. Take a couple of seconds and just like, click, and share. Pass this information on. Change someone's life for the better. You can do it. I know you can. Bye now.
Hi, everyone. This is Meredith from the Senior Fitness with Meredith podcast, where I discuss all things for seniors, from fitness, your health and wellness journeys, how to be all over strong and beyond. I also have my mini podcast called Motivation with Meredith. It's a great, quick motivational pick-me-up for your days. Join me, listen now, search for Senior Fitness with Meredith on your favorite podcast platform.